The very people who are saying, be careful of fake news, then turn to us and say, oh, but trust us because we're better. That is not good enough. How's it going, everybody? I'm still in Los Angeles. I'll be heading back to New York in just about a day or so, and I am doing some work behind the scenes to plan my next trip, which should be a whole lot of fun, so stay tuned for that. But today's video is going to be me ragging on the mainstream media, as people call it. So if you follow me on Twitter, you probably saw that I was tweeting about the Comey story. If you're not familiar with the latest Comey story, the memo story, I'll give you a quick breakdown. It is being reported that Comey drafted a memo following a meeting with Donald Trump where Trump asked him to end his investigation of Flynn. Now, let's get into the problems I have with this reporting. First, according to the New York Times and the Washington Post, they did not view the memo. The memo, in part, was read by associates of Comey. All right, so let me give you a quick recap. Comey's associates read parts of a memo that they claim Comey wrote following a meeting with Trump, and the New York Times and the Washington Post did not view the memo. Yet, they still feel that they can put out statements like, Comey Memo says this. No. First of all, right now, it's allegedly a memo from Comey because you didn't get it from Comey, and you didn't even look at it to see if it's real. So I understand that you might trust your sources, but you're expecting me to trust you trusting someone else? No. It's one thing if a journalist says, I viewed this and I believe this to be true, and I'll say, okay, well, I might trust them that they said they saw it. But these reporters didn't even see it. Now, here's where it gets really frustrating. The reporter who did the story actually tweeted that this is a fact. Not that the memo says this. He actually tweeted, Trump asked Comey to end the investigation and called evidence. No. Hold on. We are far from evidence. Allegedly, Comey drafted a memo where Comey believes that Trump asked him to end this investigation. It is not evidence of anything. First of all, let's assume that the memo really did come from Comey, and it does exist. It's still just one person accusing another person of doing something. It's far from fact or proof that Trump actually did this. But sure enough, we're seeing headlines from large news organizations saying it is a fact that Trump actually did this. This is irresponsible and it's misleading. So it's no surprise, well, maybe a little surprise, that I have large mainstream journalists telling me this is in fact really good journalism. I'm also told by one reporter, well, this story isn't for the average person, it's for the people on Capitol Hill. It is irresponsible for people to put out tweets saying that Trump did this, it's a fact, when all you have is a third party reading from their phone. How is this journalism? So I'll say this. Is there a possibility that Comey really did draft a memo? Sure. And the reporter who did the New York Times story trusts the people he spoke with, and so therefore he felt he could report the story. A lot of people have said this, to me, is good enough. And like I said, large established journalists told me, you've got to trust them, particularly because of the work they do behind the scenes. And this led me to think, wow, there really is a huge disconnect between mainstream news and the digital internet culture, whatever you want to call it, to where we need proof. There's an old saying on the internet, pics or it didn't happen. If you can't, and even pictures can be photoshopped. People want verification, they want timestamps. You've got to prove this well beyond a reasonable doubt. But let me tell you a story that exemplifies the current fracturing of our culture and whatever it is and old school culture. Back in 2015, Ellen Pao was the CEO of Reddit, and she resigned. It was huge news. The New York Times quickly put up a very short story giving you the basic facts. Ellen Pao has resigned. Reddit is a company that does this. There's the story. This story quickly shot up to become one of the all-time highest upvoted stories on Reddit. Right? This is a serious story for a lot of people in the Reddit community. The CEO is stepping down and many people didn't like her. It reached all-time number 3 and number 5, I believe. It's been, almost a couple years. Well, sure enough, the New York Times rewrites the article with the same URL. They just go into the article and they change over 80% of that article. And instead of making it a very dry breaking news, Ellen Pao resigned, they changed it to something like Silicon Valley 2, Ellen Pao 0, the great fighter of sexism, Ellen Pao is out. The story then goes on to talk about how Ellen Pao is seen as a champion fighting against sexism. It quickly became a left-leaning analysis piece. I was shocked by this. Coming from the internet, whoa, you can't edit an article to this degree and not notify your audience. How could the New York Times do this? There's actually a website called NewsDiff, and they show you the edits that the New York Times does to their articles over time. To me, this was a huge story. The moderators on Reddit, when they noticed the change in the article, deleted the article from Reddit, saying it broke the rules, that they edited the article, that's not allowed, and that the headline became misleading because the altered piece was partisan. It was a left-leaning analysis piece, no longer just breaking news. Well, sure enough, I was like, I gotta do a story about this. I can't believe the New York Times pulled this off. And you know what I was told by mainstream journalists, the reporter? This is normal. And sure enough, this was when I was working at Fusion. The editors at Fusion said, Tim, this is totally normal. We change articles almost in their entirety all the time. I couldn't believe it. I was told, be careful. We don't know if we want you to do this story because we do the same thing and we can get called out for it. And this is when I realized the internet culture, whatever it is, whatever this alternative culture is, I don't even know, demands a high degree of proof. And when I talk to a lot of my friends who believe outrageous conspiracy theories, they tend to be people who just hear the news in passing from a friend or from the airport when the airport news network is on, if you know which one I'm talking about. And so they're not Google searching these stories. They're not looking in depth. They're just hearing things in passing and they believe them to be true. I guarantee you right now, many people, 100% without a doubt, believe that Trump ordered Comey to end the investigation into Flynn. Because they're not going to read the story. They're going to hear it from one of their friends, from someone else, and that's just incorrect. But then you have the irresponsible journalist who actually wrote the story flat out tweeting that Trump did this and it's proof. But we're far, far, far from proof. And it's misleading to the public. And it creates this weird split universe where one side says, I don't trust any of this. And the other side says, I heard this, so it must be true. I don't think the current state of our politics, the left and the right, the free expression, the anti-expression, pro-Trump, anti-Trump, is really coming from a left and right paradigm, but from a skeptical and an uninitiated point of view. Some people are uninitiated and they say, oh, I don't know, CNN reported it, so it must be true, right? I saw it on MSNBC, so it must be true, right? And then you have this other culture that says, why should I believe this? I don't think I should trust this person. Old school journalists are tweeting at me saying, this is legit. And everyone else is saying, this is nowhere near legit. So what is really going on? Honestly, I have no idea. My assumption, I've done videos about fake news before, but my assumption is that many of these people are just lazy, bad at their jobs, and they come from a different world where that people should just automatically trust them, that they're the heralds of truth, and therefore whatever they say goes. I don't care if you're the New York Times or booboo.info. I'm not going to trust you unless you provide proof. But what's mind-boggling is that these calls for blind trust, I'm told you got to trust the work we do behind the scenes, are coming from the very same mainstream media organizations telling us to be wary of fake news and to not trust information at its face. The very people who are saying, be careful of fake news, then turn to us and say, oh, but trust us because we're better. That is not good enough. That is not good enough at all. So there is another side to this, and there is another problem. And it's that while people are being turned away from the mainstream news sources, often they turn to pretty bad alternative sources. But it's a bit sad, if you ask me, that people have lost such trust in these establishment news organizations over years of just putting out bad information that they will, in turn, look for other outlets which still produce bad information. We're in a tight spot. And every day I look at these stories and I'm just absolutely confused that these stories are acceptable. I'm going to wrap this up with my final thought on the whole thing. I told you the example of what happened with the Alan Powell story and with Comey. Where we are right now, for the sake of just clarifying everything, an associate of Comey read part of a memo to a reporter. That's it. And yet what we're hearing is that Donald Trump ordered Comey to end his investigation. We're nowhere near that being the case. I just don't understand. Hopefully, we can breed a culture of people who demand a higher degree of proof before making huge statements, before trying to impeach a president or God knows what. We can't jump the gun and we can't make assumptions. So, thank you all so much for watching. Thanks for hanging out. If you like the video, click the like button, comment below, let me know what you think. New videos every day at 6 p.m. I'm going to be heading back to New York tomorrow, so I'll see you then.